listening to TMZ Movie Crashers.
Welcome back to TMZ's Movie Crashers. I'm your host, Fabian Garcia from TMZ.
And I'm Scarlett Sanchez, also from TMZ.
Scarlett from Research, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it so much. Paige is out, obviously, this week. She'll be back next week. But thank you for filling in on short notice.
Of course, anytime.
We're
Thanks
happy
for
to
having
have
me.
you. Of course. So lots of movie news this week. Let's quickly go through what we're not going to talk about at length today.
Okay.
Jaws was re-released in theaters. Also kind of part of National Cinema Day this weekend. $3 movie tickets. I went to go see it on IMAX. It was great. On top of that, Timothée Chalamet at the Venice Film Festival making a splash in his backless halter top, I guess it is, or whatever it is. I don't want to get too into it, but it's just more interesting fashion choices from Timothée Chalamet. But we're not going to talk about that stuff at length. What we are going to start today is with the big motion picture. And this is our biggest movie topic of the week. We have got to talk about, we are once again talking about Don't Worry, Darling. It premiered at the Venice Film Festival this weekend, and the drama was ripe. It was ripe with drama there. And it wasn't Olivia Wilde and Florence Pugh. They were the center of attention for a bit, and we're going to talk about that too. But the thing that took precedent was Harry Styles and Chris Pine, and Harry Styles apparently spitting on Chris Pine. It looks like he spit on him.
I think it definitely does. This was an unexpected feud because, like you said, we've been seeing Florence, we've been seeing Olivia.
Yes.
It almost feels like maybe there's a divide now, and it seems like people are starting to take sides
I agree.
with this feud. So Harry came up to his seat. He was
Right.
sitting next to Chris. Olivia sitting right next to Chris too, but on the other side of him.
He's like in the middle of both of them,
Right,
kind of,
right. And he kind of leans in, and you can't see spit necessarily come out of his mouth.
Right.
But he does do this little movement with his mouth.
Like a
it
gesture.
Looks like,
To me, it looks like he purses his lips. In fact, actually, before we talk about it more, let's actually play the video. We have the video. Let's listen to it real quick. So there it is. And I think we're on the same page. It looks like Harry Styles does spit, right? There's some kind of gesture he does. He leans down. He kind of does something with his lips.
Yeah.
It looks like a spit. But to me, the more telling thing about this that really kind of gives it away that he did in fact spit, I think, is Chris Pine's reaction. Chris Pine, because they're clapping for Harry Styles. That's what's happening. So like it's before the movie's about to be screened. Harry Styles is making his way in. He's getting a round of applause from everybody. Chris Pine is clapping too. Harry does his thing, apparently spits, and Chris Pine mid-clap stops and like looks down at his seat.
Right.
And then looks up kind of shocked and bewildered and smiles too. It's almost like a comical disbelief. Like he can't believe this just happened.
Did he really just spit on me?
Right. That seems to be what he's thinking. And Harry, meanwhile, just kind of...
His reaction, too, after the fact, because he's trying to avoid the fact that
he
maybe
glosses
he
it
did.
over. Yeah,
Right.
he kind of plays it off like, yeah, nothing happened, just kind of sits down. And I don't think he looks at Chris Pine, but Chris Pine is looking at him. But Harry Styles is just kind of looking around like, yeah, like, hey, what's up, man? Like, no big deal. Like, whatever, just trying to play it off like nothing happened. Something I think did, in fact, happen.
So.
And we actually there's conflicting sources and stories on this. So one source we have that we've spoken to who is close to Chris Pine says it did in fact happen.
Okay.
He did in fact spit. It wasn't like a loogie type spit. There wasn't even very much fluid. It was more of just like the gesture of spitting, like that kind of thing, right? Almost like as if he was like spitting out air. But the fact that Chris Pine apparently perceived it. He perceived it as like, what? And he took it as a sign of disrespect. Other sources that are kind of in the mix here, they're denying it. They're saying it didn't happen, that the video only makes it seem that way. The internet is torn on it.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I have theories as to why, if Harry Styles did in fact spit on him, I have theories as to why, but why do you think Harry Styles might have potentially spit on Chris Pine?
There were some interviews where I feel like they were paired up together
Yes.
in the conference.
Yes.
And Chris Pine just kind of seemed bored and not interested very much in what Harry had to say.
Right. Because Harry was answering the questions.
And a lot of Harry's responses were a little bit, you're not quite the actor maybe that Chris Pine is. No offense to Harry Styles here. I am a fan of his.
Yeah.
But he is kind of new to the acting world.
Right.
And one of his answers was, my favorite part about the movie is that it's a movie. And that makes people go to the big screen because it's a movie. And Chris just kind of gives him a little look.
He gives
it's
him
very
a look.
subtle, though.
It's a subtle look. And he also kind of does something with his neck in that video. So he's kind of like this. It's like, what? Like kind of like what the hell did you just say?
Yeah.
So look, you're right. That happened. And also, we should note that when Florence Pugh arrived for the red carpet, because Florence Pugh skipped the press conference, and seemingly, in my opinion, to avoid Olivia Wilde, because, you know, we've talked about this feud that's been boiling over. We don't have to rehash it again here, but it does seem that Florence Pugh skipped that press conference on purpose. For whatever reason, couldn't make the press conference, but was able to make it to the red carpet. And when she did make it to the red carpet, first of all, she didn't interact with Olivia Wilde at all. But what Chris Pine was doing as soon as she showed up is he busted out like a little film camera, like an old school like Kodak type thing or whatever, because he doesn't have an iPhone apparently. He's got a flip phone. That's what they say.
Okay, cool.
So that's why he was using that. But he has this camera and he's like shooting Florence Pugh, photographing her, posing, like kind of playing with her a little bit, really enthusiastic about it.
To me, that showed I'm team Florence Pugh.
Yes,
I
took it that way too. I took it that way too. And to your point, like people have been taking sides. I think factions have been formed, and I do believe Chris Pine might in fact be Team Flo, like you said. And if that's the case, on top of that interview thing where maybe Harry was made aware of that, like someone was saying like, hey, look at what Chris Pine was doing during your interview. He was kind of grimacing behind you or whatever, like looking at, giving you stank face a little bit.
Right.
Maybe those two things and potentially other things that we're not aware of were happening. And Harry Styles just kind of felt like, yeah, screw you, dude. Like, take that. You know what I mean? And I got to say, if it did in fact happen, which I think it did, that's my opinion. I think it 100% happened. What do you think that does to Harry Styles' reputation? To me, it shows what I've always sort of suspected about Harry Styles. I know he's like this big it boy and everyone loves him. And he's like a big pop icon, all this bull crap. He's a punk. You know what I mean? Like he's kind of a punk to me. He's just like another one of these self-entitled little, I don't even want to, whatever. That's kind of the thing. I honestly think, despite how I might feel about it, I think it puts a stain on his image and his reputation
100%.
a little bit, right?
100%. I think his association with Olivia Wilde, I feel like he's getting clumped into everyone's
yes.
negative feelings towards her.
Yes, because she is really taking on the brunt of this. People are kind of joking like, oh my gosh, she's the new Amber Heard 2.0 or something like that.
And I can see that because especially with that leaked video when she was talking about Shia, that just showed that you blatantly lied. You lost your credibility. People do not like her anymore.
No, they don't.
You know, I'm starting to feel that way too a little bit, which is unfortunate because she is a female director. I feel like she's
talented.
And
I'm actually excited about the movie, even though the reviews that came out of Venice were sort of meh a little bit. People were praising Florence's performance. The movie in general is getting meh reviews, but I'm still excited to see it. We're going to talk about it obviously here when it does come out. But I agree. It's unfortunate that the movie is kind of suffering because of all this, the drama of everything is taking precedent over the actual movie itself. Speaking of Olivia Wilde, let's actually talk about her a little bit. Look, the perceived feud between her and Florence Pugh, which I think is real as well, was kind of came to a head this week, and people were wondering, are they going to interact? How are they going to interact? Obviously, Florence Pugh got ahead of it by skipping that press conference and did not interact with Olivia Wilde. She didn't even look in her direction at all, which to me is also very telling. But Olivia Wilde was asked about this perceived beef, and she addressed it in the presser, and she kind of gave a bit of a non-answer, a bit of a snobbish non-answer. Let's hear Olivia Wilde speak for herself.
Florence is a force, and we are so grateful that she's able to make it tonight despite being in production on Dune. I know as a director how disruptive it is to lose an actor even for a day, so I'm very grateful to her, grateful to Denis Villeneuve for helping us, and we're really thrilled we'll get to celebrate her work tonight. I can't say enough how honored I am to have her as our lead. She's amazing in the film. And as for all the endless tabloid gossip and all the noise out there, I mean, the internet feeds itself. I don't feel the need to contribute. I think it's sufficiently well-nourished.
Okay, so that is such an uppity, bougie
PR. We practiced this.
Totally.
We rehearsed it.
She had it ready in the can for sure. Here's the thing. She's saying that like it's like gossip tabloid stuff. Part of it is a lot of speculation on social media and people kind of running wild with that. But also, part of this is also your own doing, your own interviews. You've been giving a lot of interviews, and you've been putting your own foot in your own mouth over this, especially with the whole Shia LaBeouf thing. You got caught red-handed. You got caught lying red-handed, and when that video leaked, you were seen throwing Florence Pugh under the bus. So it's not. Yeah, exactly. That's condescending. So part of it is tabloid stuff, but also part of it is It's you. You're the one who's actually fueling it by talking about it so much. You know what I mean? So,
and we know Twitter. Like, we know that sometimes we give that almost too much voice in our
yes,
society
we
now.
do.
We're constantly looking at what's trending, which
Right.
is important because we want to hear what people have to talk about. But
Right.
sometimes it gets taken a little bit too far on the internet or on Twitter.
Right.
But with this, like you said, with the video, there's clear evidence of your actions. So I feel like it would have been better for her to actually address it truly and give her honest opinion. Look, Florence and I were going through some things. I might have made some mistakes, but this is what we're going to do going forward, and we really want to focus on the film. So let's ignore the drama.
Yeah, I mean, if I agree, it would have been refreshing to get an answer like that. But to be honest, like if she would have given an answer like that, it would have been stunning. It would have been top of headlines if she actually admitted there was something going on. Like I get it from like her perspective as an A-lister, etc. You kind of have to just kind of
brush it off.
Yeah, brush it off, bite the bullet, and like pretend like nothing's happening.
Yeah.
I clearly think that there is something happening. You know what I mean? Like Florence Pugh, for whatever reason, does not like Olivia Wilde, has not really wanted anything to do with this movie. She came and did her job for the press. She didn't even do the press conference. She came and did her job and appeared for the movie itself. But
And people were making a big deal about her only showing up for that part, but Timothée Chalamet also is her co-star in Dune, and he was only there briefly too. So just to defend her a little bit, I'm going to throw that out there.
That's a good layer. That's a good look, because you're right, because Timothy and her are both filming Dune Part 2 in Budapest. So you're right, they did kind of fly in. Timothy was just there for the red carpet. He wasn't doing press either, I don't think, right?
No, I don't believe so, no.
So, okay, so
brief.
maybe there's something there. Maybe, I don't know.
Or maybe they planned that too,
also,
because they don't want...
It's also a possible plan as well. Anyway, so Chris Pine definitely got spat on, and I think there's definitely something going on between Olivia Wilde and Florence Pugh. Luckily that this is over now. We can just move on. Let's just watch the movie. I think hopefully this fizzles away, but yeah, Olivia Wilde has walked away from this kind of bruised, in my opinion. So with that, we're going to transition to our next topic, which is the Hollywood hoedown. And this is where we talk about smaller breakout stories. We're going to stay on Venice, and we have to talk about Brendan Fraser.
Of course.
Brendan Fraser got a huge standing ovation at Venice for his movie, The Whale. This is Darren Aronofsky's film. Brendan is the lead in it, and he's opposite Sadie Sink. It's gotten some good reviews, and Brendan Fraser's performance is getting a lot of Oscar buzz because he plays like a morbidly obese man. And apparently the performance is powerful, that people say it's very moving. And it kind of showed in the standing ovation he got, which he got emotional about. Let's actually watch that clip real quick, too. So there it is. In the video, you can see that Brendan Fraser was apparently trying to kind of like sneak out or sneak away or something. That's kind of what I was seeing reporters saying, that he was like apparently trying to like leave the theater or whatever. But as he was leaving, the standing ovation and the applause started focusing solely on him, and he was overcome by it. You know what I mean? And you can see that he's like
teary-eyed.
He's teary-eyed, and he does like a little bow and stuff. He's very grateful and thankful. People are saying that this is Brendan Fraser's comeback, his official mainstream comeback into Hollywood. He's done a few roles here and there over the past couple of years now.
Smaller films, though.
Smaller films, different types of roles than he's done in the past. But people are saying that this performance in The Whale, it's getting so much buzz, and he may well be nominated for Best Actor in it. And if that's the case, good for Brendan Fraser. I'm going to quickly just say I love Brendan Fraser. He disappeared for a long while, and why did he disappear? Explain why he disappeared from the spotlight, because he was the shit in the late 90s, in the 2000s with The Mummy and George of the Jungle. Right. He was in tons of stuff.
He was the guy.
He was the guy.
Top guy. Yeah, and he had multiple reasons of why he stepped back. Some of it was injuries, because he took on a lot of physical roles.
Right.
So he was in and out of the hospital a lot of the early 2000s for back surgeries.
Wow.
So a lot of serious injuries, like I said.
Right.
He also went through a divorce, also the death of his mother. But the big one was definitely... He talked about in a GQ interview that he was sexually assaulted by Philip Burke, which in 2003 at the Beverly Hills Hotel.
Right.
So he's the former president of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association.
Right.
And he talked about how he opened up about that, and it was just really difficult for him. Wow. And he never received an apology from him.
Was it? I don't know the details of that. Was it like a bad?
So he went to his back and went and cupped a feel on his butt and gave it a little squeeze.
Yikes.
And Philip said, "Oh, it was just funny. It was for fun." And he was really bothered by it, obviously.
Right.
And it was more of a traumatic event for him.
Totally. It's essentially it's a Me Too story, but from a man's perspective. And we've seen some of that too. Like Terry Crews, I think, spoke about something like that, where he was allegedly groped or assaulted too. So. Okay, so if there was a few things going on in Brendan's life at the time that made him kind of step away from Hollywood, and that's fine. I'm glad he took that time away. And now he's back, and I got to say, like, Brendan Fraser obviously looks very different now than he did in the late '90s and the 2000s, but he kind of owns that too. He even says that the character that he plays in this movie was like this morbidly obese man. It's interesting. He says that this character I played was the, quote, bravest man that I've ever played on camera, which is telling because he's played some heroic type roles in the past, like famously. And that to me just kind of speaks to where Brendan Fraser is in his life. He's not trying to do big blockbuster films anymore. He's trying to do serious work with like some kind of like chewy material. You know what I mean? And if that's the case, and if this movie is as impressive as people say it is, I'm stoked because I love Brendan Fraser. I think he totally deserves this. Speaking of that, The Rock. The Rock actually shouted out Brendan Fraser on Twitter. He retweeted this video of Brendan kind of getting emotional. And he said, I'll paraphrase. He basically just said, like, I am so happy to see my brother, Brendan Fraser, getting his flowers and kind of getting this round of applause because, frankly, he deserves it. The Rock starred with Brendan Fraser in one of the Mummy movies. I think it was The Mummy 2, where he plays the Scorpion King. And The Rock says, that was kind of my breakout into Hollywood. And Brendan Fraser was one of the people at the time who was welcoming me with open arms, really made me feel comfortable.
Vouched for him, too, he said.
Yes, he vouched for him, exactly. And so The Rock is happy to see Brendan Fraser in a good place right now, as we. Yes. Brendan Fraser's the best, honestly, because, like, wasn't he an Encino Man as well?
He was.
He was. So he was, like...
the 90s films,
He was the thing.
Like.
He was the guy.
And just touching on his looks, too, he talked about how he almost felt like he relied on his looks in his former films, and this he could really, truly be himself and take on that character.
Right.
And it was his most challenging role, but it made him appreciate it even more.
Totally. Now he's in a place where he can act. He can rely on the acting chops. And I'm very excited to see that movie when it comes out.
Me too.
So happy for Brendan Fraser. And with that, we're going to move on to our final segment. What'd you see? What'd you think? And we both saw different movies this weekend. You saw Elvis.
Yes.
So here, let's talk about this because we did the Elvis review when it was in theaters, but now
it's now streaming on HBO.
It's now streaming on HBO, and it was actually trending all weekend. Elvis was trending all weekend. Austin Butler was trending all weekend. So basically, a new wave of people got a chance to see this movie. Because me and Paige, we try to make an effort to go see things in theaters. We're just kind of theater snobs like that. Not everybody goes to see things in theaters. I get it. You got to see it for the first time.
Yes.
I'm curious what you thought about it because I gave my opinion of like a couple months ago about it. I'm happy to reiterate it here, but what was your take on it? I'm very curious to see what you thought.
I'm a huge Elvis fan, so I was really excited to see this. I wasn't too happy instantly, to be honest.
Okay.
Just with the cinematography, it felt very cartoonish to me.
Yeah, and I felt it's that director's style.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I understand that, but I felt like it took away a little bit from what the story that was being told because there was a lot of important themes. I feel like when they talk about segregation, they talk about the revolution of sex almost with Elvis, the pelvis, and everything. So all of that was great for me, and I almost wanted a little bit more music too, but I think it was a little bit distracting because I know we were seeing it from the perspective of Colonel Tom Parker, which is his longtime manager, promoter, and everything.
Right. Played by Tom Hanks. People say badly, apparently. That's what people claim.
Okay, I was bothered by that too because I kept hearing Tom Hanks's voice, which I actually had a discussion with my parents about this, and they said, but that's why you book actors like him because you want to hear his voice a little bit. But to me, I disagreed with that because if you're a great actor, you shouldn't be hearing Tom Hanks' distinct voice.
The actor should disappear. I agree.
Yeah.
So so you think that he was a little distracting in the movie? Because I've heard that a lot. People say.
Did. And I don't even think the accent was very good.
It wasn't. It was
not.
bad.
And Austin Butler, I think, did a good performance. I'm just going to say good, though, because I just feel like he could have fully transformed a little bit more into Elvis.
How so exactly? Because my thought on that is, first of all, I thought Austin Butler was a good casting choice generally. Like he has kind of this general Elvis look about him, but he's not a dead ringer. He's not like an identical a duplicate, if you will, of Elvis. Nobody is, obviously, but like,
Right.
I think they probably could have gotten an actor that maybe looked a little bit more like Elvis, in my opinion, like maybe Miles Teller potentially. He was supposedly in the running for this, but Austin Butler looks enough like Elvis. I thought he had the voice down for sure. The thing that though is that Austin Butler is shorter than Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley was like 6'2" or maybe 6'3". He was a tall guy. Austin Butler's like 6 foot maybe, and I kind of noticed that height difference. Like he seemed a little short in the movie, and also he seemed a little skinny in the movie.
That's what I was gonna say.
Elvis Presley,
Elvis got bigger.
Yeah, I mean Elvis Presley, fat Elvis, obviously later in his life, but like when Elvis was in his prime, he was like a stocky guy. He was like kind of firm, kind of like he had a fuller body. You know what I mean? And Austin Butler those suits looked a little unfilled in my opinion in some of those scenes. The other thing the other critique I have about Elvis is that the pacing was weird. Like it just kept moving and moving and transitioning. Like it never really let you sit in any given scene and just soak in what's happening.
I think that's what I meant about the music. Like I feel like we couldn't even enjoy Elvis's music because we would be watching one scene and it would jump. And it really held on the mother's death for a very long time too. That was a little bit slow for me. I understood that was important, but yeah, I think we could have moved on a little bit quicker from that.
Right. And I also thought that there should have been more dramatic Elvis scenes. Like there was that scene with him on the staircase with the wife or whatever, but like there wasn't enough. Like to me, like when you do a biopic like this, and I get it, like especially with a big music icon like Elvis, you really what Hollywood tends to do is lean into the musical performances, right? That's because that's the big showy type of thing to do. But for me, I'm not so much interested in that. I don't care about the performances. I can go see Elvis performances on YouTube. You know what I mean? I want to see what was potentially going on behind the scenes. I wanted more dialogue scenes between him. I wanted to see more like actual acting.
That's why I liked when they addressed the assassination of Martin Luther King. They addressed the assassination of JFK. So all those storylines I really enjoy just because you could see his reaction and his emotion from that.
Right.
But like you're saying, just let's go a little bit deeper with that dialogue. And I feel like we had so much dialogue from Colonel Tom Parker.
Yes,
I was
too much dialogue.
Not bored, but I was just, I don't care.
Right. He's
Stop
like
manipulating Elvis so much. I want to move on from him. Like I understand that probably happened, but I want to hear Elvis's distraction or Elvis's opinion on it. Why wasn't Priscilla getting more involved too with Tom Parker?
Priscilla was like barely in the movie at all. So yeah, I mean, some people love it. Some people do you think Austin Butler is deserving of an Oscar nomination for this? Because people are like, oh my God, Oscar nom.
No.
Whoa! Oh, hot take. Oh my gosh. I got to be honest. Like when I first saw it, part of me was like, yeah, he's probably gonna get nominated for this because it's pretty good. But as I sit back, because I've seen it twice now, I'm like, I agree. I don't know if it's really worthy of an Oscar. You know
I think
what I mean?
he did a great performance.
He did it justice, I suppose. But Oscar worthy, maybe not.
I think for me, I hate to just completely compare, but when you compare it to Bohemian Rhapsody and when you compare it to Elton John, I enjoyed those a lot. So I don't know, maybe I was a little bit jaded in that.
True, and it might be the director's style a little bit too. Because it is kind of flashy and weird, and it's shot weird. I agree. So what I saw this weekend was Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul, starring Sterling K. Brown and Regina Hall. And directed by the Ebo twin sisters. So this movie really flew under the radar this weekend. It bombed at the box office. I don't even think it made like $1 million. There was like hardly anything new out this weekend, but this is one of the new movies that was out, and I went to go see it. And it's a shame that it didn't really get more ticket sales or more attention. I don't even think it was really marketed all that well. I saw a few trailers here and there maybe, but it was kind of like a low-key movie, which is a shame because it was so good. It was actually like one of my favorite movies this year, which is kind of saying something because Everything Everywhere All at Once came out, and that's one at the top of my list. But this movie was good because are you aware of it? Did you see like the trailer for it?
I did.
So it's like shot like a
mockumentary,
and it plays like a comedy. The way it was advertised and the way it's kind of billed is like a mockumentary comedy. It's like funny and jokey. It looks kind of silly, right? That's kind of the vibe I got when I was watching the trailer. I was not excited to go see this. And then I went to go watch it. I just kind of sat in, watching it, taking it all in. And I didn't realize it is kind of like a mockumentary a little bit, but it's also shot traditionally as well. Essentially what the movie is about is this minister or pastor, whatever, of like a mega church, Sterling K. Brown. He's in the middle of this like really dramatic crisis. Like he's in a scandal of sorts publicly. And he and his wife, Regina Hall, they're trying to make a comeback with their church. They've lost a lot of their congregation over this. So they're really trying to like reopen the church again and trying to build back his reputation again. And there's a lot of comedy throughout. And basically they hire a documentary crew to kind of to film this whole process. That's kind of where the mockumentary stuff comes in.
Okay.
So it's part mockumentary, but then there's a lot of scenes that are just shot traditionally, like normally. And I was blown away because it gets serious. It gets very serious, especially with some of the topics. The reason he's in a scandal, I don't want to ruin it, but the reason he's in a scandal is it's like some sex stuff, like sexual allegations type stuff. And Sterling K. Brown, his character is so up his own ass in his bullshit. And he's like, we're going to make a comeback. And Regina Hall is kind of playing the good wife and trying to go along with it. But you can tell throughout the whole movie, she's suffering a lot and she's sacrificing a lot. And the performances are great. There's a scene in there where Regina Hall is in whiteface, like almost like in a mime type thing. It's very striking. The imagery is striking, but she has this scene when I was watching it, she's like talking to the camera. She's like, you and you and you. And she's basically explaining why she's deserving of this comeback. She's like, I've done everything I needed to do. I was the good wife. I prayed. I listened. So God owes me this. It's dramatic. Like I said, there's comedy because, Regina Hall's known as a comedic actress, right? Like Scary Movie, obviously, everything. But like this movie, she showed her dramatic chops, as did Sterling K. He's shown that before, but just powerhouse performances. And it's unfortunate that it flew under the radar the way it did. It deserves more attention. I actually made a TikTok about it and stuff. But I gotta be honest with you, especially with Regina Hall specifically, when I was watching it, I was like, wow, like she could potentially get nominated. Like
I was just about to ask you
if
that.
Oscar voters are paying attention, I know this movie is might actually get pushed by the wayside and completely forgotten, which is again a shame. But if Oscar voters are paying attention, Regina Hall in this movie really stood out and gave such an emotional performance that I think she might be nominated. If she's not nominated, I would consider it a snub, to be honest, because it was that good of a performance. Honk for Jesus, really, really great. Again, I also saw Jaws too. That was I saw it on IMAX. It was good. It was good. It still holds up today. It's still hella scary. I don't know. Have you ever seen Jaws? Or
I have.
You have?
Yeah.
You think it's scary, or is it just kind of corny?
It's a little corny.
It's
kind
of corny.
It has its moments of thrill and scariness.
Right. And then I go ahead.
For Honk for Jesus, that's based a little bit on a true story, correct? Bishop Eddie Long.
Is it?
It is
Well,
a little
here
bit.
you are
There's
with the
some
research.
parallels.
Oh my God. Okay, here you coming with the facts. I did not know that.
Well, I was going to say more, but I don't want to spoil of it either. So,
Well,
but it is the same thing. A mega church pastor.
Right,
he had
right.
allegations, lawsuits coming up against him. Again, I won't spoil it either,
Right.
but very similar storylines. And then the wife and how she stands by him.
She does.
Threatens to divorce him.
She stands by him to a fault. That's kind of the whole thing. Like a wife that is so loyal to a fault, at a certain point, as you're watching the movie, you think like, wow, like, I guess I appreciate the loyalty, but when a person is this flawed, a rational person would break away. But that's kind of it also kind of talks about church culture a lot too, and also Black culture. You know what I mean? Like, cause church is big in the Black community. You know what I mean? And it talks about that a lot. There's a lot of commentary about that. And I was actually seeing on Twitter, people were saying, "Oh yeah, like Black Twitter's gonna be mad about this," or like your pastors are gonna be mad about this, because it does kind of make fun of the pastor. The whole like not charade. I don't want to say charade. That's too strong. But like just the whole like theater of it. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of theater in what they do, and this movie kind of pokes fun at that a little bit.
Okay.
It's really good. I recommend.
I think I'm going to watch this.
You should. You
I
should go
am.
see it.
I am.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
I watched some TikTok clips and I was like, okay, I could definitely see it. And I was seeing Regina Hall was getting a lot of praise.
She was,
like you said.
And like I said, just if she gets an Oscar nom, totally worthy, and if not, big snub. And with that, I think that's a good place to end it. Thank you again for joining us.
Thanks, Fabian. It was great chatting.
It was a good episode. And we will catch you guys next time. Stream us on Spotify, Apple, iHeart. We're on YouTube. We're on the website. And yeah, tune in next time, and we'll catch you guys later.
Thanks.
See ya.